Hey, Cornerstone, thank you so much for joining us today online. We are so grateful for the incredible Christmas services that we've had this year, and we're thankful to take this Sunday and just pause for a minute, but still gather together in our homes to still honor God with our Sabbath. And so today, I wanted to talk to you really quickly about remembering. We don't spend enough time reminiscing. And I really believe that reminiscing is an incredible spiritual discipline that sometimes gets overlooked. I want to take you to a portion of scripture that talks about it. It's in Psalm 77, verse 11 says this, I will remember the Lord's works. We need to spend more time just remembering all that God has done. We did this about a week or so ago with our staff, and it was Dylan who brought up, he goes, remember last year at this point, we didn't have a church home. Our Lakeway campus was a set up and tear down campus, and now God has provided a home for us. And if we're not careful, what we can do is quickly move on to the next thing that has to get done before we truly appreciate and spend time being thankful and grateful for what God has provided. And so I want to encourage you, especially on a day like today, on New Year's Eve, to think back through the year. How has God provided for you? What has God done this year for you? What are some of the testimonies that will be buried in your memory if you don't take the time to tell them around the table? Spend time with friends and loved ones and family and your children, telling them how God has provided for you this year. Tell them about the emotions that you went through, whether you were worried about God providing, whether it was hard times that you were going through, whether or not you truly believed or your faith wavered. I think the next generation desperately needs to understand the reality of our faith. They need to understand that it always doesn't go the way that we anticipate that it will go. But the faith is the ability to function even within the unknown. And so I want to keep reading here. When you go on in verse 12, it says, I will reflect on all that you have done and meditate on your actions. Meditate sometimes gets a negative look because of some of the other forms of meditation that have really, should I say, clouded our view of God. But meditating is something that God calls us to do, to meditate on His Word. And right here in verse 12, it tells us to meditate on His actions. I want to encourage you, even challenge you today. Spend some time just ruminating, remembering, putting the pieces back together of all of what God has done for you this year. Or maybe it goes beyond this year. Challenge the people around you to share their thoughts, to share their feelings, what they were going through in those moments. I think it's very powerful when we do this as a community of people. When we do this collectively, we become so much stronger, and other people can interject their thoughts or trigger memories that we may have forgotten. You see, a lot has changed in our life and in our world. I remember growing up, when we get together as a family, we had these photo albums. When families would get together, especially when loved ones would pass, they would take a photo album out and they would go through all the memories. They would just look through old pictures, times that were so precious to them. They were great memories of the journey that each one of us are on. And these bring back memories that we may have forgotten. It's so easy to forget all that God has done in the process. And it's important that we take time to remember what He's done. You see, today, most of our photos are trapped on our phones. And we don't take time to open up our phones and roll through when we're with family. However, the practice of sitting and remembering is so important for our spiritual formation. We need to spend time saying, God, how did you get us from here to there? And our children need to remember. Our children need to be told the story of God's faithfulness in bringing us from where we were to where He has now brought us to be. That story is critically important, and we need to tell it well to the next generation. Let's keep reading, though. In verse 13, it says, God, your way is holy. What God is great like God? You are the God who works wonders. You revealed your strength among your peoples. I think it's really critical for us as Christians and Christ followers to remember God's strength, even when we don't have all the answers to the problems that we face. We're going to look at 2024 with eager anticipation. And it's only going to take a couple of weeks before we run into circumstances or situations that are going to frustrate us, or they're going to disappoint us because we thought it would work out better than this. That's the moment to remember God's strength and to tell people about His strength, because He is never going to leave us. He's never going to forget us, and He's never going to fail us. Sometimes we have to learn critical lessons in those times when it's difficult. There is strength in the struggle. Sometimes we want to remove the struggle, but if we remove the struggle, we'll then lack the strength. And so I want to encourage you today, spend a little bit of time. Spend some time remembering, meditating on all that God has done for you this year. Also, thinking about what is the word God has given you for this year. That word is really important to help focus you for the coming year in order to be able to accomplish what God's called you to do this year, and to walk out His plan and His purpose, not only for you, but for your family. And so as you do that, I encourage you to invite other people into that practice. Invite your family to that. I believe that that will really enrich your family in this holiday season as you look forward. We're not waiting for the end of the year to bless the Lord because He's blessed us. We're starting the year saying, we know that You're going to bless us, and we're going to make our faith function at the beginning of the year by giving our first fruits offering. We're excited about what God has. We did this last year and saw Him provide in so many ways. I personally am so thankful that at the beginning of the year, for the past 4 years, we've been giving an offering to the Lord and watching Him provide for the year to come, and still waiting and doing it in hindsight. So we'd love to ask you to start praying now. How can you stretch your faith? How far can you trust God? What is He asking you to do this year? How can you make your faith really function in a way that you could tell testimonies to the next generation and to the people around you to encourage them? So please, plan to join us every Sunday for the month of January as we start our new series, Reset. I promise it'll be worth it.